Hey, Daily Dosers. My name's Nat Lambresi, and I work on the Vista campus with the Young Adults Ministry. And today we're talking about the impact of godly fathers in our lives. And as I was thinking about that this week, looking at the Bible, I think the story of Joseph gives a really excellent example of maybe in a lot of our lives, we have the experience of seeing generational sin. We experience how our grandfather treated our father and then how they in turn treat us. And it seems like we're in this pattern, this holding pattern of continuing the last person's mistakes because of the way that they impact us. And it seems like a trap that we have. And so I think the story of Joseph is almost like a window of hope that we can actually change some of those generational sins and instead step into some generational healing. You can read the story. I'd really encourage you to do it later on this week in the book of Genesis. But through a story of the patterns in Joseph's life, he's one of the youngest, second to youngest in his family of brothers, that he experiences such betrayal from his brothers, that there's such pride, arrogance, greed, and dishonesty within their family, that his brothers even sell him into slavery and will tell his dad that he's been killed by wild animals, that they would break their own father's heart in order to get rid of this younger brother that's kind of a threat to them and an annoyance. And just imagine the amount of bitterness that could come in Joseph's life. And he continues down this path, but instead of choosing more bitterness, God works through him. He continues to be faithful, and he gets to take part in some generational healing. So at the end of the story, he's gone through this entire journey where what they meant for evil in his life, God has meant for good. And in Genesis 50, verse 15, he says, after their father has died and they've come back to Joseph, his brothers start to be afraid that Joseph's gonna now get some revenge. And instead of coming for revenge, Joseph wept when they spoke to him and said, his brothers come before him and they say, "We'll be your servants." They know that they deserve so much of his vengeance and wrath. He's now in the position of power and he could totally take advantage of them. Their dad's not around. And instead, Joseph responds with grace and humility, and he weeps and practices reconciliation and radical generosity and forgiveness. And I think if I look at the fathers that I have in my life, in my own father, in my husband Jake, who's the father to our kids and their lives, I think it's this same thing that I get to see them practice. And I think the wisdom of it comes from, or can be found in Proverbs 16. Proverbs 16 verse 6 says, "By steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for, and by the fear of the Lord one turns away from evil. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies be at peace with him. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice. The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his step." That godly fathers don't take revenge into their own hands. They don't even continue in the patterns that were set before them by their parents and those generational sins. Instead, there's this key in verse 6. It says by steadfast love and faithfulness, which throughout the Bible is another way of describing Jesus. By trusting in Jesus and being faithful to do what he's calling you to do, you can become fathers that set new patterns in your families. You can take part in generational healing and then see generation after generation experience more and more healing because of your faithfulness. And so let that be a challenge just today. Would we take an example from that, whether our fathers are godly or even that we've had examples of generational sin? Instead, we get to step into maybe setting some generations of healing by trusting in Jesus, by being faithful and obedient just today. Because we don't know what God could work through that, what the enemy might mean for evil in our lives, what might feel like darkness, God could actually mean for great good for his glory. We'll see you guys again next time.